Main man ain't talking about nothing, but he thinks he is. So let's go through and dissect all the misinformation that he's spewing within all this passion.
Living around white people is not a human right. You don't get to live with us all the time, all right? This is our country that we built. Yeah, white immigrants built this country, thank you.
In reference to the precursor of what would eventually become the United States, Europeans, specifically the English, struggled to erect a colony in America. They failed numerous times until Jamestown, which is why Jamestown is so prolific, for becoming the first English settlement to be able to triumph through adversity, with the help of Native Americans and enslaved Africans. Without their help, Jamestown would have ceased to exist just like the rest of the English's attempt to establish a colony in America. Roanoke Colony, 1585, failed. Roanoke Colony, second attempt, failed. Popham Colony up in Maine, failed. And then you get Jamestown. Not to mention, Jamestown almost didn't make it either. By the end of 1607, only 38 out of the original 104 settlers remained.
It was swampy, mosquito infested, and the water was impure. Before long, the colonists were battling disease and hunger.
Finding food and finding provisions to keep that colony alive was one of the toughest jobs, not just for Jamestown actually. Most European colonies failed within 12 months.
They soon realized they are woefully unprepared.
The English have been laughed at, in a sense, by historians for arriving without any clear sense of how they're going to support themselves.
Despite abundant fishing and hunting, the English simply lacked the requisite know-how to make their food supply meet demand.
So while life was lifing for Jamestown, all of a sudden they run into Pocahontas and the Powhatan tribe. And then a little after that, you get the arrival of the first enslaved Africans transported to what would later become the United States. They both directly helped sustain what would eventually become his first permanent settlement. It's just funny to me how he this is a country we built. But when white people got here and all they had was themselves to rely on, it just wasn't working out. They had a hard time withstanding the test of times.
Read the Naturalization Act of 1790.
But what is the Naturalization Act of 1790? A bunch of people not originally from America telling other people who migrated to this land that they're not allowed to proclaim to be from America or granted citizenship unless co-signed by specific guidelines. Guidelines that at the time a lot of folks wouldn't have qualified for in the first place due to their identity. That's a catch-22, ain't it? A little bit, kinda. Like, ain't that what that's called?
No, it's the truth. This country was founded by white Protestant
And yes,
men.
I understand that black people have been a part of this country since the beginning because of slavery, and I'm not
I think the
endorsing
girls
slavery.
over there don't like what you're saying.
And I know that, yeah. Yeah, and the logical consequence of slavery is that, you have these people displaced in this country, and, at the time, maybe the better choice should have been to just send them back to Africa.
Now here, I'm not sure if he's being serious, sarcastic, or unaware of those attempts, but here we go. The American government did come up with a campaign encouraging free slaves to take advantage of an opportunity to be relocated back to Africa. In 1816, the organization was formed known as the Society for the Colonization of Free People of Color in America, later abbreviated to the ACS, the American Colonization Society. Its objective was to establish land in Africa to relocate free slaves. This would later be known as Liberia. Yes, the country Liberia was created by America. Marcus Garvey also had aspirations to relocate black Americans to Africa through the works of the UNIA, but that was ultimately sabotaged. Long story short, in 1920, Marcus Garvey negotiated a deal with the Liberian government that was agreed upon to receive a plot of land in Liberia, a part of his Back to Africa movement. But due to pressure from the American government and the strong political figures, that deal was later reneged so that the Firestone Company could establish a rubber plantation instead.
Because clearly they can't integrate in a proper society and live with us without just murdering each other in the streets. So it really kind of makes you think, well, now, it's baked in now. What can we do about it? And, some people I watch Nick, like Jason Whitlock, he had the thing with Jason Whitlock where Jason Whitlock says, oh, well, if they're just Christian, man, then, things would be different. But then you look at countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo. That country's 95% Catholic, roughly. And they have one of the highest murder rates in the world. And, their country's it's a failed state.
Main Man's original point is focused on the societal issues in America. So to use another country in comparison for example purposes without acknowledging any similarities between these countries deems his reference irrelevant and insignificant to his point. Meaning he's just talking just to talk. But nevertheless, let's dissect. The Democratic Republic of the Congo was introduced to Christianity or Catholicism. This wasn't a practice within their culture until they encountered the European. The Portuguese first introduced the religion to the Kingdom of Congo in 1491, and then their influence leads to the spread of its beliefs in the neighboring regions, such as the land known today as the DRC. Then about 400 years later, the Berlin Conference and the Scramble of Africa happens, further instilling Christianity in the region. Also as a result, King Leopold II, a fellow Catholic, massacres between 10 to 25 million Congolese people between the span of 1885 to 1908. So Europeans came in, caused disruption and destruction, created a culture of killing mercilessly for 20 years, and do want to come in and highlight the plight and turmoil amongst the Congolese people that white people directly had a hand in configuring, but want to blanket it with, they shouldn't act like that because they're Christian. Well, white Christians help facilitate that lifestyle, so what is your point exactly? So to use the DRC as your point of reference, doesn't that seem a bit hypocritical to your own perspective? Mind you, in reference to the subject at hand, America, manifest destiny is a belief white people came up with to convince themselves it's their God-given right to kill and displace all the indigenous people of the North American continent. Christians came up with that.
And it just really makes you think. It's like, it's not a culture issue, it's not socioeconomic, it's not religion, then, what is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, IQ does play a huge role in it, and that's the thing that people don't like to discuss. But yeah, no, that's true, man. The truth hurts sometimes for people.